Hello and welcome to Noises Were Made, a music-based podcast where we connect our passions with life to the people that make it happen. Thank you so much for being here on another episode. This week we've got an interview with David from All About Guitar. First part, we're going to talk about All About Guitar, where that's come from and what he does and the services they provide down there on the west coast of the UK. And in the second part of the series, we're going to get deeper with David on his music and what he likes. So let's get into it.
How did I get there, I suppose, is probably what you...
Yeah, absolutely. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so back in secondary school, I can't remember which year, it was either year 8 or year 9, randomly, and I still don't know why, randomly, me and a bunch of mates got asked to go to this sort of musical and arts thing that they had on in an afternoon, and these two gents came in, and basically we formed a band in school, and learning songs. I ended up playing bass for that band. I just got shoehorned into being the bass player.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And then from that on,
I love bass players, really.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a great way to start and understand rhythm and understand, what element
absolutely.
what element each instrument has in a band. I think bass is a great place to start if you're not hugely musical straight from the beginning, but you've got an understanding and appreciation of music. You can sort of then build off that and build a relationship with the drummer, for example, first and foremost, and that's where the bass sits, and it was really good for me to build this band. Like I said, we had a group of us, and we played the music nights at the schools and at other local schools in the area, and then that band became a band outside of school, and we recorded some EPs, and we had a bit of a following in the local music scene, and we sort of toured with a few local bands, and it built from that throughout our later school years, if you know what I mean. From that, I went on and studied music, because from that point onwards, I was pretty much hooked, and went on to study music at Access to Music, which is very similar to like the BIM things that you might have seen around, the British Institute of Modern Music or whatever it's called. Very similar to that, but this was prior BIM, so BIM wasn't even in the UK at that point, so it was a way in to the music industry, and majored, or whatever you want to call it, in bass guitar, normal guitar, and music production. So that then I was like, ooh, now I've done all that, what do I do? And going by our conversation earlier on, you don't just go then into the music industry when you're in early 20s, because you realize it doesn't pay a huge amount, and you really need to get a career. So in all fairness, I then went into technology training, and because of the confidence, I suppose, I built up from being in bands and being able to stand in front of a couple hundred people or more, being able to talk about a product seemed to be quite second nature. So there were skills that I'd learned from my musical time, and then went into a career. And like I said, that career lasted many years, working for some big brands, that I'm not going to name any sort of technology brands right now, but if you've used a mobile phone, or you've used a bit of consumer technology, I've probably worked for that brand as a technology trainer, or in sales or marketing of some description. So yeah, like I said, that then went on and on and on. I was still playing in bands, and I was still sort of, the job I had let me travel around the country, so I would make near to a venue that I was playing on the Friday night, for example, with work, take the gear in the back of the car, go to, do my day's work, and then go to the venue on the evening and do the gig, and maybe then go on to somewhere else on the Saturday night, do a gig, come back home on Sunday, wake up on Monday, do it all again. So
is that a remit for any successful musician, to be a good planner, do you think?
Definitely. Yeah, you need to know where you're at, right? You need to make
good logistics.
Yeah. Definitely need to make sure you've got the gear in your car, and you want
the right gear,
gear in your car. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of made it work for a while, but as you can probably appreciate, it kind of takes out of you a little bit, trying to do these two things at once. Yeah. So I stopped being in bands probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. So I was still working, but thought, well, I can't be doing both of these things at the same time. So the music thing and the gigging live thing kind of went out the window. I still did a lot of stuff by myself and still did a lot of stuff locally, recording and all that kind of stuff, but wasn't playing live at that point. So concentrated on the career, but like I said to you earlier on, kind of got made redundant at the wrong time, if you like, the day before we all went into national lockdown the first time. And then I realized that if I was going to make anything out of my own career or carve a life out of something that I would enjoy and not have that fear of being made redundant all the time, I set up All About Guitar. And like I said, that started off as just teaching a couple of mates' kids, and then it snowballed into what it is today, which, you know, every year and every month really, it's a new adventure or something new coming in, through the contacts that I've made and through, you know, just being true to myself and not trying to please the wider audience, so to speak. And sometimes you do throw a lot of stuff at the wall, and hopefully a few of those ideas stick, which I think every small business owner kind of does that within the first few years and see what's going to work.
Then you just described most marketing departments.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the experience of sales and marketing kind of helped with that a little bit, knowing how much effort to put into certain ideas and what's going to work, and at what point do you go, actually this idea is a bad one, and letting it go, and just being able to then pick up another idea and run with that for a while and see what happens. And that's kind of how the shop idea came about, to be honest with you. That's one of the most recent ideas I've had. It's like, well, who would work with a small business person that has a passion for music, and what brands would share the same ethos, you know, without being a big player, so to speak. We've had this conversation off air, if you like, around Fender and big brands like that need you to pump loads of capital into their brand. You know, but there are brands out there that don't need you to do that and just want, you know, to work with you for the passion and the drive and the advertising and the, you know, the using of their products and social media.
Absolutely.
And all that sort of stuff and all the exposure that brings. So there's always a new chapter. And, you know, one of the latest ones is Chapman Guitars for me at the moment. That's done really well. And the guys there have been really helpful in setting up a sort of a mini dealer relationship, if you like, with All About Guitar. And I think that's just one example. There's smaller, you know, UK-based companies, Axe Wax, for example, for all the guitar care stuff. They're another one that kind of helped me by helping the end user, if that makes sense. So, you know, what do you use to make your guitars look good in your studio? Well, I use, you know, Axe Blast from Axe Wax. Okay, well, where do I get it from? We can get it from me. You know, that it just completes the conversation, you know.
It does, absolutely.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today, really.
And being on that level in independence, as you mentioned, you're not, I won't say a slave to the system of being a box shifter.
Exactly.
Because for those listening in the UK, obviously there's the big guitar and musical outlets like the PMTs and the Andertons and Guitar, GAC, etc. They're all big musical outlets, but then you have like but they're all beholden on box shifting, mass volumes, mass volumes. Obviously, that's why they often get quite low price breaks. Then you have more specialist retailers, and that's where you're positioning yourself as a specialist retailer. So the volumes will be a different level,
exactly,
but they will be also going to, I guess, a different clientele.
Yeah, to a degree. The way I position it to people that don't know anything about All About Guitar is almost like a guitar advisor company. So literally, as the name suggests, all about guitar. So what do you need help with that guitar that you've got? Are you looking for something new? Are you looking for something used that you've seen someone play and you're like, oh, I can't find one of these anywhere. Can you help me find one? And then through my contacts or through, you know, people like yourself, we have a conversation and go, well, yeah, so-and-so's got one for sale in Worthing or wherever it might be. You know, we can find you that. Or it's ringing me up and saying, I've got a bit of fret buzz, you know, or I plug it in and nothing happens. Dave, can you help? You know, it's literally anything. Or we talked earlier on about plectrums. It's what plectrum should I be playing for this style of music? What strings should I be using? It's that advisory business I've positioned in. And it's, don't get me wrong, a guitar business isn't a unique proposition. But a guitar retailer, I'd be shooting myself in the foot if I was just another guitar retailer from that independent level, especially as I don't have a storefront or a high street store or anything like that. It's all done through online consultation and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right in the sense that the positioning is different. And it's born basically through passion. As we've said before, it's not just being another one of a PMT or a GAC or a guitar, or whoever. I've got partners that work with me that can build a guitar for you, and it can be spec'd to exactly what you want. Through the guys at Munson Guitars over in Great Yarmouth, they generations and generations of woods craftsmen who have a passion for guitars. So it's a very similar sort of model in the sense that they've taken their passion and their skill set and brought that to market. So if it was something you couldn't find, I could probably get it built for you, and it's finding that niche for the customer. It's not walking into a shop and picking something off the peg and going, I want this guitar. That's not what this is about. This is advising you a little bit deeper, understanding your needs, your wants, your desires, what sort of music do you play, understanding everything about you as a player, and then servicing you, if you like, whether that's with a product or modifying a guitar that you've already got.
So going back to when you first got into playing music, is that the sort of thing that you would have liked to have seen in a retailer, or in to have that type of experience?
100%. Yeah, I think Bristol's quite a unique place in the sense that it's changed over the years. But back when I started, there was a lot of independent music shops, and a lot of secondhand musicians. Rephrase that. A lot of secondhand music gear in those shops, in those smaller shops. And I bought a lot of my gear from those places. I didn't go and buy brand new when it first starting out, mainly because I couldn't afford it. So it was understanding that if I bought that, could I bring it back to either exchange it for something else or modify it in a way that would suit me better? And having that conversation and that relationship with that retailer straight from the off. And I just feel like that's missing now because of the like you say, the big boys, the box shifters that are out there.
I know we spoke again offline about being the box shifting almost like the car industry, where it's just a volume exercise, which is nothing wrong with that, but you are basically beholden to the manufacturers or the companies that you represent. I have to shift X amount in order to keep my status of being a dealer for you.
Exactly.
I think we saw that with Macari's actually in London, where they were a Gibson dealer, and they obviously box shifting, but they get to a certain point where they weren't going to be or going to do the volumes, so they took that decision to not become a D, I believe. So they took the decision to not carry on the dealership as a Gibson, authorized, so to speak. And at that time also you had Andertons and the like pushing Peaches. They're all pushing through mass volumes because of their social channels. So I want to say the old world of Denmark Street and London, as we've seen, is slowly waning away. Which was the heart of music, or music alley, so to speak, because of the historical connections.
Of course.
Anyone famous went and bought something there, which is cool. But now, with mainly because of rents, it just staying in those sort of areas is prohibitive, and the footfall that you get is nothing like the visits you'll get on a website or a media channel. So it really hits them.
There's two problems you've identified there. One is, from speaking to people in the industry and when setting up and having these ideas, you kind of branch out, don't you? You kind of have those conversations with other people. And I've got a close connection that was worked in a guitar shop that unfortunately had to close down due to lack of footfall and lack of trading and lack of basic money going through the till, basically. And one of the things they mentioned about one of the brands you've just mentioned there is the fact that they would literally just send them boxes of gear, not tell them what was in that box, but it would.
Oh, they've no idea. They can put down what they'd like to have sent.
Exactly.
They don't always know.
Exactly. So what was happening is this shop was more of a folk instrument shop, so more of a classic rock folk sort of blurred line a little bit there, but you know what I mean, a bit more classical instruments, single cut stuff. That's not the name any brands in that sense, but you know, and they would send them Flying V's and Explorers, and you're like,
oh yeah, straight up there.
We're not going to sell those. And unfortunately, that tied them into their contract, and they had to shift them, you know. And these sort of things then were being shifted for lower price, lower profit, lower, you know, benefit for the business. Therefore, they couldn't keep up with that, you know, that demand, if you like, from the dealer. And I wanted to get rid of all that. I wanted to build a guitar destination, whether it's online or whether people ring me up or they fill in a form on my website or whatever it might be. I wanted to get rid of that problem.
Yeah, it is that cyclical thing. You have to do the volume to then get the status, to then do the volume to get more status, to maybe get some special runs or to have some greater access to the pool or some clout in choosing certain things, which is all very well, but as you say, from a commercial standpoint, it's very difficult to make those numbers work, because the retailer, unless they guarantee they've got a market that's captured, find it increasingly difficult to, you know, service that whole client list, or that little network they've created, or the community around that shop, invariably around some of the big channels or the media channels, for example, in the guitar industry. And that could be people as well. Someone like a Paul Davids for teaching, for example. Huge community around just him and his playing and, you know, his personality. If he wanted to set up a shop, he'd find it challenging, even with the reach he's got, because of the nature of it. Simply, once it's the manufacturers want to get rid of the stock so that they can make more stock, because they are just manufacturers. And a lot of people, we all do it. We all, you know, I've got that guitar, that is a Fender, and so before, the Fenders are parts companies, but we all get excited by this, and then we all get emotionally attached to it, and we think of it greater than the sum of its parts. And when you're in the business of it, you have to detach from the romance in a way, which can be difficult.
It can, because, the amount of things I've had in that I've gone, oh, I really like that.
I've got a few.
But then knowing deep down that I've got to probably sell it to service the business and obviously service the customer that walks through the door. And that's probably one of the reasons why I do what I do, is because I want to be passionate and I want to buy product in for my customers that is good. And that might seem a bit fluffy, but the answer is I want to make sure that it's selective in that sense. And for all the distributors and all the people that speak to me and say, oh, you don't have a shop, so therefore we're not going to service you, or we can't service you because you don't meet our terms and conditions, or whatever it might be. For every one of those, there's another 5 smaller companies that are itching to work with people like me. So I don't mean that to sound big-headed. What I mean is that there are a lot of companies out there, and they all deserve to be a part of this journey as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been sadly quite a lot of the industry around music, not just musical instruments, but within the industry itself, like recording studios and session players and everything as well, that because of the pandemic were hit. And the knock-on effect of that is, you know, across any industries, that they're all feeling this. We're going to feel this for 5 or 6 years. But I do think this is a great time. On the flip side, you know, the reason that you've set up as you're doing, and some of the things that I was doing previously, it's the musical community is getting stronger and wanting to do more, to interact more. You've got artists at the top end who are challenging the likes of Spotify and record companies, saying, why are we getting 80 million streams and only getting 200,000? Surely there's a disconnect there. So people are taking their albums off and voting with their feet. Not that I'm suggesting everyone goes on strike, but the amount of media that's created these days, and because it's so easy to create media and content, we can all do it. Grab a phone, do something, fire it out there, unedited, but there's content and it's out there. That people are now getting drowned by that. So the quality content has to shine through. And how do you do that? You have to have someone who's put a lot of practice in, who's spent a lot of time learning their fundamentals, and who understands the musicianship associated with playing an instrument. And that could be, it's vocal as well, because that's its own instrument. But I think those bits have actually had their light shone on them a lot more, and people are really appreciating that's really good music, and that's not so well. So I think some of the artists who are suffering at the moment are the ones that were getting by because they were in that big system of, we have a contract, or we have a so-and-so within the industry, and now that's not paying the bills.
No, absolutely. And when I was playing in bands, a lot of the releases and stuff that we did were on independent labels, which don't exist anymore, for various reasons, whether it was set up by a guy in a shed, or whether it's a company or, a collective of music lovers or promoters in the local area that set up a record label and stuff like that. There's no money in that. No. And unfortunately, those sort of independent labels, those underground labels, don't tend to get the bite of the cherry that you're talking about there, because it's down to the artist then to do all that promotion and to do all that extra content, if you like, but maybe they wouldn't have had to have done before, because they would have had a backing, but no matter how small that backing might have been, that backing would have been there to give them a little bit more promotion, a little bit more marketing, a little bit more, oh, I've got you on a bill with so-and-so, or, that doesn't seem to happen much,
No. And when you've got if you look at the revenues in brackets that some of the, I think it's Universal Music Group, for example, or Warner, one of them, their turnovers for like a quarter was something like 4 or 5 billion, or whatever it is. It's a lot of money, and it is. Let's not pretend it's not a lot of money. But it's not actually a lot of money when you look at other industries.
Exactly.
And what you suddenly realise is that a lot of media media's consumed by everyone. We all consume media, and I recently have been using Spotify, and you just it's sort of I won't say juxtaposition, but it's a bit of a conflict even just for me, because I'm thinking, even paying for that, there's no way that the artists are getting what value I get out of it, which is great for the consumer, but it's not encouraging for anyone to make music. And is it also just become a holding ground for all the classics? Well, why don't I just go buy them on CD? Because the artists will get a better cut. I'll have that forever. And then I'm not linked to something streaming. And
exactly. But then you've got bands, take the latest Metallica release, for example. How many different versions or editions, let's call it editions, not versions. How many different editions of one album can there be? I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong, they know what they're doing, but then you end up a community, right? Then you end up collectors, and then you end up a whole different world than just playing the album on Spotify. You could buy the vinyl in 5 or 6 different colors. You can get it on cassette in 3 or 4 different colors, and stuff like that. So that's where.
But there aren't many artists that can command that.
Exactly.
That could even. I mean, we're talking. If you probably put all the artists globally, you'd maybe a couple hundred, maybe, of artists that genuinely have that kind of pull, and that would be some in Latin music, some in other ethnic sort of music, different cultures, different countries. There's certain ones that have very big followings, like K-pop and stuff. They have massive followings, and therefore there's only handfuls in each of those. I mean, classic rock, there's only a handful of real groups. I love Lenny Kravitz. He's still one of the people who's out there and touring and doing stuff. And he might outside that group, there's not many of them.
No, but he's another example of someone that might sell a white version of his vinyl on tour to make a few bucks that way. It might be an album that you already own, but you'll probably buy it again because it's a limited edition color of the vinyl. My point.
Well, interestingly, he's got a design studio or a design company that he actually owns, and they do a lot of interior design and a lot of really, because he's very much about the aesthetic.
Yes,
and he's a good-looking dude, but he takes care of himself and likes all that sort of thing. So it makes sense that would appeal to him and have a design company. So it is interesting that those sort of things, that's offering something to the fan, but that is a fan base that's already there.
Exactly.
How many new people are listening to Lenny Kravitz, how many new people are going and finding him and then going back in his back catalogue and saying, I'm going to listen to Circus, or I want to listen to Mama Said?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and that's where, like you said, this whole industry is completely different than it was when me and you started out in this industry many years ago. It's understanding that you've got to buy into that community. And going back to what I do, it's building that community. The fact that so-and-so will tell so-and-so that they've did this to my guitar and now it's the only guitar I use on tour. I've got a couple of underground bands that I've basically modified and set up all their guitars for them.
Amazing.
They're like on tour and so-and-so says, oh, what pickup's that you've put in your bass or put in your guitar or whatever it might be? Oh yeah, so-and-so, this is that so-and-so pickup. Dave at All About Guitar did that for me. And that is kind of the spirit of what this is all about. And you've
yeah, totally. I mean, give them a shout out now if you any names that come to mind, by all means.
I will do in a minute. The band, Witch Elm is the name of the band. Witch Elm.
Okay.
They've just come off tour in I think they did a little Benelux tour.
Nice.
So the idea is that you build up that spirit of community, like you were saying, and it's knowing that there's a certain pocket of musicians out there that don't know how to do X, Y, and Z with their guitar. So just coming back full circle, it's having that understanding and having that ability to pick up the phone or to answer a form online or whatever it might be and go, yes, I can help you. It won't cost you as much as so-and-so would do it for you, actually, because I can do it cheaper or whatever it might be.
100%.
But it's understanding that will have legs into the future. So what turned into a bass setup for that band, for example, then turned into a whole backline setup to being invited to be their sound engineer when they went on tour. But unfortunately, my schedule didn't allow me to do it. But, it turns into a much bigger thing. And that's the core element of all that is what we've been talking about all along, is building that community and having that point of contact at the end of it and going, yes, they're going to do a good job. They know what they're talking about. I need X, Y, and Z. I wonder if they can get it for me.
So what's the future then, you think, for All About Guitar?
So I really would love, and I think working with you on this and getting the name out there, I wanted to have a bit of a broader audience. At the moment, it's very much Southwest based. I'd probably go up as far north as maybe the reach at the moment is probably sort of Cheltenham, Gloucester way, and then down to the south coast, and then down into the southwest. So that little corner pocket of the UK, if you like. It's starting to happen. I've got a customer waiting to ship me a box of a kit that he bought, and he doesn't really know how to put the guitar together. So luckily enough, it's a Telecaster, and me and you had a conversation offline about how much we both love Telecasters and how nice they are to put together
Absolutely.
and modify. We have a few between us, I think.
There's a couple.
But there's that reach has started to happen. That guy is just in the north of Birmingham, for example, found me online. You can do this. Yeah, great. Well, I want it this color. I want these electrics. I want it set up in this style. I play this style of music, etc., etc. And for me, it's just all about getting that reach, and getting those people to trust somebody at the end of the phone or whatever. I'll incorporate things like, if you're going to ship something to me, we'll incorporate the cost of that in the work, so you don't have to, you're not out of pocket. And that's all about the consultation part, If it's something that I can't do, I'm sure I can find someone who can help us. Or if it's something that's completely unique and you want something built from scratch, like I said earlier on, I've got people that work with me for that. So it's just the reach at the moment. And coming into the second half of this year, I'm rebranding the website. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff on there, lots of content, lots of videos, lots of how-to guides, just to show how I do things. It might not resonate completely with everybody, as we've talked about earlier on. People are unique, musicians are unique beasts,
indeed,
in this sense. But I'm happy to show my workings out, so to speak, to coin a school phrase. And it's just being able to then have that content out there and to go, actually, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to give him a ring. I'm going to get him to install me some new pickups, or I'm going to get him to, let me know what pedal would work for my outboard rig or whatever it might be, and it's just having that point of contact. So lots happening. I think it will all come into fruition as the next few months happen, and obviously I have more conversations with people like yourself and hopefully the listeners in here as well that might go, he knows what he's talking about, pick up the phone and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's hopefully a busier second half of the year. This year has been great with I've literally opened the floodgates for repairs and all that stuff, so that's excellent. Really gone crazy.
And it's the touring season as well, and a lot of more people are getting out there now, which is nice.
Exactly, and the festival season obviously is back in full swing this year properly.
Properly, yeah. Last few years of, I think they actually did a bigger job on 2021. I think last year sort of flopped for some reason. I think a lot of the festivals.
I don't know why.
I think they thought 2021 was going to be a big boom,
yeah,
and it was okay because we were still under those sort of conditions.
Yeah.
So then they didn't really think, well, it's not worth backing. Let's just put the feelers out there. Then a lot of people were maybe underwhelmed at some shows, and there wasn't as many acts, or there was a lack of effort put into the show. So I think this year there's a lot of the places that we're going to step things up a bit and try to get back to pre-pandemic kind of status.
I also think last year probably had the knock-on effect of 2 or 3 years of downward spiral trading for a lot of the industry, and last year was that year where it kind of probably got to the lowest for performing anyway, for festivals and capital investment into promotion and all that sort of stuff. But you've only got to look at Download Festival, for example. The first time in its history it's sold out, so you can't get a ticket now. It's 4-day festival as well.
Yeah, it's going to be loud.
Yeah. And just going back to where I see things and where All About Guitar will kind of go forward, I think by the end of the year, I'm going to take a lot of what I've learned and a lot of the partners that I work with and have some special edition guitars, if you like, built through All About Guitar. So with Munson Guitars, who do all the custom building for me, as I mentioned them earlier on, we're probably going to do a couple of special runs. So taking the best of what we've learned as a partnership together and kind of putting some unique instruments out there in the marketplace that, we'll come to that. You'll see all that kind of through the social channels and stuff as the year goes on. But there's these partners that I'm working with and that have been busy with me over this last sort of 6 months or so are only going to get stronger, if you like, over the next 6, 9, 12 months as well. So that's going to be quite exciting. Taking what we've learned, taking the partnerships that we've picked up along the way between the two companies and kind of build stuff as a nearly finished product. Something that can be tweaked by the end purchaser, if you like, different pickups, different wiring configurations, different bridges, whatever. But the idea being that, it's nearly there and you just add your final tweaks. Because I think when it comes to custom building as well, we've got an industry where people kind of know what they want, but to get them to pick and choose.
Do they really?
Exactly. So giving them a list of options, they go, well, what's the difference between ebony and rosewood? What's the difference between even simple things like a humbucker and a single coil? Some people don't understand the tonal differences or the tonal properties of certain woods and all this sort of stuff. So we're going to try and squeeze those options a little bit and kind of give them a nearly finished product and then build off that. So there's lots of ideas floating around for that.
Wow, I know we got a two-parter, and I've got some questions written down for you, as well as you telling us, your favourite songs and influences and stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the actual questions I'd written down as you were talking was, you were talking about guiding people.
Yeah.
And it's thinking, do people actually know what they want? Because I've done it before, got in, and I desperately wanted a Strat, and I don't like the two-horn devil. I don't really like them, but I desperately want them because Hendrix is one of my heroes and got me into it.
Yeah.
And I went and played this guitar, and I just thought it sucked.
Yeah.
And I just, it's like kind of the sounds there, but I didn't connect with the guitar, and it was badly set up. It was just straight off the shelf of a big box place.
Mm-hmm.
It just, out the box, in it, there it was. No one had set it up or dialed it in. Even if it was, that would have made a bit of difference maybe, but overall, that instant love's not there. And the guy said, what do you normally play? I said, well, it's Les Pauls. Just picked one off the wall. So again, that had no love. Just picked it straight off, played it. It's like, yep, there it is.
Yeah.
That's home.
Yeah.
and that was a lower tiered one than the one I played. Doesn't matter. It's like that's the feel.
Yeah.
So often we see a lot of adverts for new gear and lots of stuff. This is the nice shiny new thing, and this is all walks of life, not just music.
Yeah.
It sometimes we don't. We need a little guidance, and as you're saying, that's where yourselves All About Guitar comes in.
Yep.
You can help guide people in shape, like, what do you really want to do?
Well, that's it, and it's all about questions.
Yeah,
it's understanding what questions to ask the end customer, basically, and you don't know what you don't know. So
no, that's true.
So a lot of people that are listening now, or that have any experience with guitar, you might think that all necks are built the same, that all the shapes are the same, all the radiuses are the same, all the fretwork's the same. Doesn't matter whether you spend $2,500 or 200 quid. Some people, they think it's the same. And it's just asking the right questions. What style of music do you play? What sort of sounds you're looking for? Who inspires you? That's a big question. Like you said, though, Hendrix was an inspiration for you, but you didn't gel with a Hendrix style Strat, shall we say?
I didn't start playing Telecasters until 5 years ago. Before that, I've been Les Paul all the way. And I tried with Strats. My first guitar was a Strat, but then I went straight to a Les Paul, a variant Les Paul.
Yeah.
And then from there, I tried another Strat just to try and get like a white Strat. Let's really swing it. No.
Yeah.
Just you can get the tone. You go, yeah, but it's just I don't love the.
Yeah,
and
it's all the feel, right? And it's hard to do
totally.
that to someone who doesn't play an instrument, but it's the same whether you're playing, a student level violin to a Stradivarius. It's the feel, it's the build quality, it's how is it put together. We've off air we talked a little bit about how a lot of these guitars are put together in the factories as well, and sometimes the lower end stuff might not resonate with you because of the way it's put together, and then sometimes you might buy it because the price is good and you think, oh yeah, I'll just get on with it.
Yeah.
But then you end up bringing people like me, which is great for me, but it's not great for you as an experience from the shop where you bought the guitar from in the first place.
Absolutely. And I think it's fair to say every guitar should be taken on its own merit, each individual one, because you can get a very expensive one that's not handcrafted. That's a different story altogether.
Yeah.
Anything custom is completely different because it's had hands on. But for anyone listening who's in music but not necessarily with guitars fundamentally the way they're built, the value or that you pay is really denoted by how much time on hands they have had in the factory. So they're more expensive ones have had more people having more time just refining it, and a lot of the time the woods are the same or similar. They might have lower componentry, but the basics of the chassis, so to speak, are very similar. But it's the refinement and it's the way things are, I say loved. But better quality control as well. I know we've mentioned, but we'll get into the gear sort of stuff in the next chat. But because that's not even a rabbit hole. It's just that's the maze. But it's good for us to hear that there are independents starting up and offering these things, because more and more the world has become more isolated. And people are looking online. I don't have a shop near me anymore. How can I can't go and put my hands on it. So they want to have someone to reach out to and say, can you tell me what I'd be feeling or what this would be like? I think everyone would agree putting hands on stuff ultimately is always preferable, but sometimes you just can't do it.
The unfortunate world that we're in at the moment with retailing is that it's so expensive to have that high street shop. My dream as a kid, after getting hooked by music, was to have a music shop. That's kind of where this niggling thing in the back of my mind has come about, and this is why I've built All About Guitar the way I have.
Could you see one happening?
I would love to. If there was...
never say never.
Exactly. Right? If there was the opportunity and the local authorities and stuff were a little bit more forthcoming with business rates and all that kind of stuff. This is a non-political podcast, so we won't talk about that the startup costs for something like that for such an industry that's very much dependent on customer and not, what I mean is specific customer. It makes it a little bit difficult to do that right now, shall we say?
No, it does. And high streets are, I know certainly in the UK, the high streets are very dwindling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you even, in fact, these big box places that we're talking about are often more just off on a high street, or even on industrial estates where they have big warehouses you can go walk around in and so forth.
Exactly.
So that more and more you're finding that just the way of the world.
Cool.
But it is really good to hear that yourselves are doing that and setting it up. And we've obviously got something else we're going to catch up on, and we'll see David again. And we're going to talk some more gear, and we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty and find out what strings he uses, what his favourite plectrum is, and all the really sad stuff that if you are into guitars and instruments, then you maybe geek out a little bit more.
Cool.
But thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it.
All right.
And speak to you soon, man.
Cheers, buddy. Take it easy.
Catch you later, man. Bye.
Well, that's it for this week. I want to thank my guest David again from All About Guitar. It's really great to hear about what's going on down there. And if you're in the southwest of UK, or anywhere in fact, go to his site, check him out, look at his socials. And the same goes for us. If you haven't listened to any of our episodes previously, go back and have a listen. We've got the second part of this interview coming out next week. But until then, thank you so much for listening, wherever you are or whatever you're doing. Take care.